Hello and welcome to The Skin You're In. This week on the show, I'm going to be interviewing my patient, Jane, who came to me almost a year ago for her first treatment and has been coming back since then. She's sharing with us her very vulnerable story of seeking out treatment for the first time and what that was like, what was holding her back, and how she's experienced change in her life since then. Please give the show a like and a follow if you're enjoying it, and certainly please share it to all your friends. Enjoy!
Hi, Jane.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on my show.
Of course.
It takes a lot of guts.
Yeah.
It does to say to the world, I had aesthetic treatments.
Yeah.
So tell us about yourself. Tell us about your family.
Yes. Okay. So I'm 29 years old. I have two daughters, Rose and Lily, 3.5 and 1. And I am a single mother. So, actually found you through my lash tech, my previous lash tech, who's the best. So Lindsay, did you see this?
Shout out to Lindsay.
Shout out Lindsay. But I remember you were doing treatments starting in her office for a bit, and I was so intrigued by it. So that's sort of how I entered into
If I remember,
space.
you were like, I've been wanting to do this for so long.
Yes.
So what, obviously I appeared at your lash
Yep.
tech office. So that was, but what
Yeah.
had been holding you back from moving to the next step?
I think a few things. I think the first thing is that I didn't realize that it was accessible to, I don't want to, this probably sounds naive, but to sort of maybe just normal people. I always sort of thought it as maybe a celebrity thing or an LA thing, or I don't even know, but I didn't realize that it was accessible and that it was around this type of treatment. And the other thing is I think I was pretty just intimidated by the whole thing. So I wasn't knowledgeable around it. I didn't know what exactly would happen with different treatments. And I think I shared an experience with you of where I entered into a different place to look at getting tattoo removal. And it was sort of like a one-stop shop for tattoo removal, for Botox treatments, for lip filler, and it just felt so rushed, and I felt a sense of stress in that moment, and I think I was looking for the opposite of that, and I think that was sort of intimidating to me when I saw that. So I think that was sort of holding me back. And then, just the general not knowing enough about it and not knowing a person to go to. My friends, my closest friends haven't had treatments before too. So that was the other piece of not everyone I saw either maybe even shared with me. It could have been happening and they just weren't sharing, but I just didn't know a lot. So I think that was the first step. And the reason I was sort of okay, I want to explore it is because I trusted Lindsay so much, who was my lash tech and helps with my skincare, etc. Trusted her so much. I was if she's bringing someone in here that she knows her clients will use, she has to trust them. And so that sort of opened the door for me of let me reach out. Let me see how I feel after a conversation and kind of go from there.
I think you might have been my first ever patient.
Yes. Yes, I will.
And I was like, why is she trusting me?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I was honored.
Oh my gosh, of course. I mean, and I think that was sort of the biggest piece too, is that I remember our consultation, and at no time did I feel pressured or I remember you sitting down with me, explaining everything to me, both the benefits, but also maybe a potential drawback or any sort of risk involved. And you didn't sugarcoat in any area, which was great. And I just felt safe and it felt intimate. So I was
so glad.
Of course,
I love
you.
hearing all of that.
So I was like, we got to do the thing. So yeah.
Did you have any hesitations in terms of the risks? Because I do talk about it with everyone, but did that make you nervous at all?
Honestly, not really, which might just be my personality. I'm going to go for it. But then, like I said, I trusted you, and even sort of knowing your background and also knowing my vision was to get these treatments, but to stay natural and what is natural to me, at least. And I know I talked to you about that when it came to both the Botox, but also when I did a filler or a lip flip, that I had a certain vision in mind of what I wanted to look like. And even on the flip side of that, I know there are points where I remember saying, like, what if we just added like a little more? And you were kind of like, well, let's talk. And that's sort of like that. It makes me feel good that you know what, like, we know what I want, and that sharing with me any more could do this or could look like this, which is always helpful because I'm being a pusher. So I'd be like, I want the things. Yeah.
Now, as a 29-year-old, your generation is, TikTok, Instagram, blah, blah, blah. So you must have seen stuff on there. How did that hit you? Like, you're kind of like, not cultural, but like, you live in this world where if it's obvious, it's usually not good.
Yep.
And there's a lot of it on all of that.
Yeah.
So how did that make you feel in terms of coming in for treatment? Like, as you said, you still came in for treatment.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is it's sort of being destigmatized a bit as we go. And I'm someone just who talks about the things that goes on, and not everyone does that. So it's sort of like, I've seen more people, like even one of my friends, I mentioned it and she was like, oh my gosh, I love Botox. And I was like, oh, okay, great. I'm glad we talked. Like, I didn't know that. So I think just starting to see, like, okay. And I remember sharing with my parents too, who are both in their 60s, and their initial reaction was like, but what about this or like your daughters, right? Like, what about how you have 2 daughters? And I remember being like, okay, I have 2 daughters. I'm a single mom. I if I'm being honest, I don't do a lot for myself. And this is something that I've realized has just been such a confidence boost, not for other people. I'm not doing it so this person or that. I'm doing it for myself. And I would always want my daughters to feel confident, no pun intended, in their skin, and feel confident with who they are as people. And I think like that's one of those things that I'm not like with my kids. I'm not like, oh, this is a bad influence. It's sort of like, so we do things to make us feel self-love and confidence. And if this is one of those things I can do for myself that really, I wake up and I feel good about how I look and how I present, and wearing no makeup, etc. No, I love makeup, but you know what I mean? So that's sort of how I view it. And again, I remember my dad saying, I brought it up to some of the women I work with, and they all get these tours. I'm like, yes, like it's just sometimes people don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So I think that still can be around in some.
Well, I wonder
aspects.
if people don't talk about it too because they do it for themselves.
Yes.
It's not like, oh, I got Botox for you.
Yeah, let me tell you.
Yeah, they did it for themselves.
Yeah, totally.
So how has it affected your confidence?
I think big time, and I think it's almost one of those things where prior to I didn't know the difference it would make. Before I had pretty defined wrinkles in my forehead and crow's feet. And I had a very thin upper lip type of situation going, and after I realized, like, oh my gosh, I didn't know my skin could look so clear, and that like my freckles could be so bright, and my smile be bigger, and all those little things that I didn't realize. And I just boosted my confidence big time. Like I've said like a few times now, I have 2 little girls. I'm busy. I work full time. So to be able to just wake up and feel beautiful in my skin and confident in who I am has really been just a game changer, I think.
Oh, I can't stop smiling. I love it.
Yeah.
Do you do a lot of Zoom meetings at work?
I do.
Yeah. Did it make a difference?
Yes, absolutely.
I will say that you have a unique setup of very strong muscles and thinner skin.
Yeah.
So you were an extremely, like, your facial expressions gave you a lot of wrinkles.
Yeah.
So does it make a difference when you're on a Zoom?
Yeah. Yep. I think absolutely. And I said, I think even just now, like looking at pictures, I'm like, wow, like I love the impact of it. And I know I've been keeping up with it. Every 3 months is typically when I come back, and it's just something that for me is worth it. And I think that, it's one sort of thing originally too of like, yeah, it's expensive, but at the end of the day, you're taking care of your skin, and you're taking care of yourself, and some anti-aging techniques and wrinkle remover type of thing. So it's sort of like an investment, I see it as, into myself, my confidence, my beauty. Like for me, it's just worth it. And so that ends up just making sense to me in how I live. Yeah.
And how about your parents, especially with your lip filler, because you had a very thin upper lip, so there has been like, you know, a change, and we're still very much within the natural appearance. But has that been okay with your parents?
It has been, and I think that was the biggest thing, is they thought, and again, like everyone has their own situation and wants to look a certain way, but for me, I didn't want sort of something that was too big for my face or that didn't look right. And I think that they sort of, social media or what they see in movies, thinking like, oh my gosh, she's gonna come back with these like giant lips, and that clearly wasn't the case. So and it's even sometimes to the point where I think even last week my brother was like, did you end up doing anything? And I was like, well, let me show you this before and after. And he was like, oh my gosh. But I was like, that's my ideal, is to like have it make sense for my face and my teeth and my gums, and it to all work out. I didn't have any impact on, you know, any voice or change or anything like that. But there's definitely, like, if I go back and compare, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, there's a difference there, which is what I wanted, a very natural, slight change without it being sort of like, okay, there's a lot going on there. Yeah. And now, you know, people around me are like asking, oh my gosh, you did, and where did you do it? And, you know, those types, and I'm like, right here. So yeah, it's been all good.
Oh, good. I'm glad. What advice would you give somebody who's thinking, especially, you know, you're the younger demographic.
Yep.
So I will say that I'm not like a big proponent of like 20-year-olds get your talk so that you never make wrinkles. I don't actually really subscribe to that, which is not great for my business. But, but because it works so well that as soon as you start to make wrinkles, you just start, and then you don't get any wrinkles. You don't really need to, if you have, you know, you were an interesting younger person who really was, you know, on the road to having some deeper wrinkles that were there at rest. But so someone kind of in that 20-something, what would you say to them who was like thinking about having treatment?
I would say definitely explore it in the sense of figuring out exactly what you're looking for, and then find someone or a practice that you really feel safe and that you can trust them. I think those are the biggest things. Cost, it comes with it, obviously dependent on what you need and how much, etc. But I mean, that's something, of course, to be aware of, but also just trusting who you're working with, that they really have your best interest in mind, even if that means sometimes saying like, hey, you asked about this, I want to share my thoughts. Like, you're really the expert when I come in, it's not me. So like, I want you to tell me when you're like, all right, Jane, we'll talk about it, but here, so someone who you trust, that isn't just gonna poke you just because you say to, but that you can really have a relationship with. Like, this is your face or your lips or whatever it is. Like, it's something that day to day is there, and so it's so important to trust who you're working with and really get that vibe before you move forward.
Yeah. Now, what was your experience? So the first thing you had was a lip flip, which is wrinkle relaxer, botulinum toxins.
Yes.
And before you had your lip filler.
Yep.
So what was your experience of the lip flip? So just for anyone who doesn't know already, a lip flip is when we put botulinum toxins in the upper lip. And it's really only for people who, when they smile, which I am one, I'm a great candidate for a lip flip. When I smile really big, my upper lip curls up and under. So this is what I look like without a lip flip. And this is what I would look like with a lip flip. I've practiced this. Are you ready?
There you go.
I would look like that with a lip
there
flip.
You go.
So you notice that the upper lip curls out. So it can, in some people, make your upper lip appear larger, particularly when you're smiling, and prevent some of the gum line show in some people, not everyone. The caveat, however, is that it can feel really strange because you're not able to purse your lips like you normally would. And so some people notice drinking out of a straw, out of a spoon, that kind of thing. Now, you've had the lip flip multiple times. How have you noticed that experience?
Yeah, the straw I've noticed a little bit, but not anything significant. For me, it didn't have a huge impact in the sense of anything I did. I noticed big time, like I had a very, like you said, a very gummy smile, and I noticed immediately like that was much smaller, and then it did make my upper lip seem a little bit bigger, which I really enjoyed, but I didn't really experience any like lisp or anything of that nature, or like just feeling really like weird about it. I think maybe the first little bit it's really up there, so you're like, all right, this feels brand new, but then you just sort of get used to it over the weeks. And I typically, that for me is I usually come in the same time in 3 months for the most part. So it lasts like a solid 3 months, probably even longer, but that's just like my mark that I'm like, here I come again. So yeah, I wouldn't say that I noticed anything significant.
And I feel like with any botulinum toxin treatment, wherever you're doing it on your face, the very first time you do it, it feels a little funny.
Yep.
And then after that, you just get used to it.
Yeah.
Is that how you found it to be?
That's how I felt it to be too. And I mean, I have a pretty high pain tolerance, so I might not be a good one to use, but even with the Botox, it's very quick it's tiny pinches. So I also think, I know some people can be like, oh my gosh, needles in my face or in my lips. And it's sort of like, you have certain techniques, especially with the lip filler too. There's certain techniques in numbing cream and things like that. But for any of the Botox I've received, it's quick. It's like just a little tiny pinch and you're good to go.
Yeah,
it's nothing bad.
It's like I always say it's like an eyebrow hair being plucked.
Yes.
Like,
yep.
And then it's done.
And then it's done. Yeah. Really quick. Yes.
And how about the lip filler? Now, I think this is an interesting conversation because a lot of people, so I pretty much numb anybody who comes in for lip filler gets numb because mostly because this is supposed to make you feel great.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to be like suffering.
Yeah.
And my background is in anesthesia. Yep. So like I like to take away pain.
Yep.
But there are some, practitioners that are like, oh, you don't need, numbing, or we're just going to poke you with a needle to numb you so that we can poke you with another needle.
Yep.
So now you've only ever experienced it with the numbing.
Yes.
But what was your experience?
Yeah. I liked the numbing cream, and I have a friend who has received lip filler at a different place, and she mentioned just that experience of like slapped it on and 1 second later had it and she was like, let it sit for a minute. Whereas with me, I felt like, yep, we let it sit the appropriate time. It still is a pinch, but it's the same thing. And sort of even back to like your technique of even like breathing techniques of the, okay, 1, 2, 3, and a deep breath. And then you also have the little vibration thing that is really helpful. So I'm like, give me that. I need that.
Do you want to know my mom was in here and it was on I should get it and show people. Yeah. And she's like, what is that?
She's like, what?
And I was like, it's a vibrator. She was like, no, really? Like, what is it? And I was like, that's actually what it is. She's like,
it literally does that. That's happening. Yeah, but that is a game changer when it comes to any, whatever. But I think that with the breathing techniques, it's a pinch. It definitely is a pinch, but it's also very quick. It also, again, depends like what you're looking for, because I remember with you, it's a process. Like you build the shape that you're going for, you're building.
Particularly when we start with a really small lip.
Yes.
Yeah, we start slow.
Very slow, and also kept me in the loop. So I had a mirror, like it'd be a little bit, and then a mirror for me to look, and we would discuss together, like, I think we need, all right, I'm thinking, and you would talk to me, and I'd be like, yep, that's what I see too. So even just having that of like, yes, you're doing it, you're creating the procedure, but we're doing it together to figure out like, what do I want on the bow and how much of it? And I think a little bit fuller here or whatever it is. So to be able to do that together has been really great too, especially when we first started out, to be like, what are we looking for here?
Does it now that you've had treatment almost a year, almost, not quite.
Yeah.
Is it like no big deal now? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, you know what to expect, and you can sort of be like, yeah, it's going to be 4 pinches or so, and you have the numbing cream and your vibrator, and you're just sort of good to go. And
I'll mention that the it sounds silly, but the vibrator is actually really effective. It's based on the gate control theory of pain control, which nobody really cares about. But what it means is that your brain can only take so much input at one time.
Yeah.
So if you have a vibration and then you have a noxious stimulus or a painful stimulus or a needle poke, you actually feel the needle poke less because your brain can't take as much in at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a well documented technique.
Yeah.
Some people call it distraction, but it's actually more than distraction.
Yeah, no, because I think the first time I didn't have the vibrator, and then the following times I did, and I noticed like a difference. And I remember being like, just like holding it on my face, like the opposite side, being, all right, come on. So
I've even had people hold it like in their hands, and they say that was soothing.
No, okay.
Just to have it like in their hand, even if they don't want it on their face.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, so it's something.
Nice.
And I have different people too, like, especially with lip filler, because, you know, you go to the dentist and some people are numb right away. Some people take a lot of numbing. Sometimes there's a little spot that's not quite numb. Yep. So I have different people with different tolerances and that kind of thing.
Sure.
And I work with, I'll say like, okay, let's try this or let's try that. And, you know, we find a way to make it not scared.
Yeah. Quick pinches.
And then how about your recovery from your lip filler? Because swelling is part of the process and bruising.
Yep. I actually was pretty lucky with the bruising. Every time I've had it, I have not had any bruising. I've seen...
That is lucky.
Yeah. I've seen people, some of my friends are on social media, and they have like the bruises, which again is normal.
Yeah.
I didn't get any bruising from mine. And I don't think I was extremely swollen either. I think
if I remember correctly, I told you the first time. So swelling is normal, right?
Yep.
And so I always tell, if you're happy and you love them on day 3, that means you're gonna want more.
Yeah, you're gonna want more. Yeah.
And if on day 3 you're like, what did I do? They're too big. Don't worry, because they're gonna go back down. So I remember thinking, you're like on day 3, you're like, I love them. I'm gonna want more.
Yes. Yes. I was like, I'm coming back. But that was the other thing too, is we didn't just go like full-blown full syringe right away. We were like, okay, little top lip, let's baby step our way in. And again, I haven't been anywhere else, but I've heard of other scenarios where they're just like, all right, you said you want this, I'm just gonna do it. Where like, is this what I like? Is this what I want? Like, I'd rather just do a little bit at a time and build up than have the opposite and be like, what just happened? Like, this is huge. So yeah, I like that step too.
It's been 3 visits?
Yes.
Yeah. So great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like small volumes for a couple of reasons. The less we put in a sitting, the less likely you are to have complications.
Yep.
And that includes, bruising, swelling. So that will all be less. Most people who come to see me are like, I want it to be super subtle. I don't really want anyone to know. Some people even say, I haven't told my husband. So the less we do, the less visible swelling and bruising you're going to have. Also, the less likelihood of more severe complications like blocking a blood vessel or something. So I really like to go with small volumes.
Yeah.
And also I feel like it lets people like settle into it.
Yep.
Did we talk about when you first came in, did we talk about the shame?
Yes.
The day 3 shame?
Yes, a little bit.
Did you have any day 3 shame?
I probably, again, because of my personality, but not really.
Good. I don't want you to.
Yeah, no, I just sort of was like, and the other thing I liked about this process, and again, doing it the first time, is that you were always like, just text me. Like, just text my phone if anything comes up, send me, and knowing that too, that you were right there. And it's true. I remember, so I don't know if you remember, but the first time I had it, I got like just a little bump, like a small reaction. I wasn't concerned. It wasn't painful. It wasn't itchy. And I like, when I get an IV at the hospital or anything, I'll get like just a little like area rash. So that's sort of what I thought it was. But I remember texting it to you, sending you a screenshot saying like, hey, and you got right back to me, and just knowing that you were right there was very helpful. So I think I just sort of like felt support. I'm like, well, Jen has me. So like, I'm feeling supported right now and I'm like, I made the decision to do this, and this is what I want to do. I've done the research, I did a consultation, and I actually remember when we did the consultation, it was supposed to be a consultation. That's what it was supposed to be. And then we did Botox that day.
That's right, and you almost passed out.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the day. I was feeling so good, so confident. I called who was now my ex and said, okay, I'm going to do it. And he was like, okay, are you sure? And I was like, yep. I'm in this moment. I'm feeling really good about it. We're doing the things. And he was just like, oh, okay, let's do it. Let's go for it. And we did it that day. Like, again, a very impulsive.
It was an evening. Yeah.
Yeah. Impulsive personality. Probably didn't eat enough. Who knows?
Yeah. And it's so funny because you did have a high pain tolerance and you were like totally fine. And then you got up to look in the mirror and you were like, well, I don't feel so good. I was like, oh my gosh.
I was like, water. Something. Yeah.
You'll notice that here now in my office, I have food always in the front. And anyone I give filler to, I'm like, so when was the last time you ate?
Because the needle, I don't know if it was like the needles end of day and then whatever it was.
You know, I've had a lot of people say different things that it's overwhelming. And actually, I've had the experience this was recently, like this past summer, so a year into actually doing it to other people.
Yeah.
I had a cannula in my face and I was being treated by somebody who I very much trust.
Yep.
But the energy in the room was such that I became overwhelmed and I like burst into tears in the middle of it. It's very, very vulnerable for someone to have something under your skin in your face.
Yep.
It's extremely vulnerable. And I feel like whatever's going on at home can come out. Mm-hmm. Whatever is going on at work can come out. If you're stressed and somebody's got a needle in your face, it's like, So,
Yeah, no, that's true. And right, like also just the environment and even with my lash tech, etc., I always feel like these type of people who are working on me and with me, I'm always just like very open with, and like that's how I feel with you too. I'm like, you know my whole life because you're close to my face, you're doing the things.
Well,
we're pals, so
we also have a confidentiality agreement.
Yes, that's true. But,
you're HIPAA protected
always, but no, it can definitely just be like, okay, this is a lot right now. There's a lot going on. We're close. We're doing the things, but
I almost feel like that vulnerability is part of why I warn everybody who's getting filler about a period of like shame or regret, because I think like you make yourself that vulnerable with someone, and then a day or two later, if you have bruising, especially if you have bruising and swelling, you have this like, what did I do? Why did I do this to myself? Why did I spend all this money on myself? Oh, you have this like self, like kind of overwhelming, you know. And I like to tell people like, hey, by the way, if in a day or two you start feeling like shame that you did this, just know that that's actually a pretty normal experience about getting filler because of all of these cultural backgrounds, like that only, you know, everybody who gets the filler has duck lips or something.
Right.
But just know that might come and just let it pass. And I've had a lot of people, and I try to check in with them. So did you feel that shit? And I've had a lot of people say, you know, I could see how I would have. But since you said something, I was okay. So,
And I remember even too, I mean, the people close to me knew, I'm like, going in for this appointment, this is what I'm doing. It's sort of like awkward to tell my parents, but I did. But I remember at work, and I was still on Zoom, just being like, they notice, they're looking, they see it, they notice, where like it wasn't anything, like people wouldn't be like,
especially on Zoom, I don't think anyone would notice.
But like I remember feeling a sense of like it's heavy that they know that my lips are different and
judgment,
and it's like no one, you know, and I'm very like, so I was just like, I got a little bit of lip filler, and they're like, like why did I feel like I needed to say that? I don't know, but they were all like, oh my god, great, looks so nice. I was like, okay, thanks. And I got about better, but I was like,
oh, that's
I'm like, oh, this is what happened. Let me tell you about it. But like no one cares. So again, sort of like that, sometimes your own like, okay, was this like society wise, like should I have done that? And then it's just like, just live in it. Like I always think back to like my why or a reason why I made a decision, and it is always for the most part informed, and I've done the research and I've talked to the people, and so it's like, this is what I wanted. And then I felt so much better after. And that's why I've continued to come back, is because I love that aspect, and you know, the ability to, like I said, wake up and just feel good and not have to go do all these additional things. It's just like, I just feel good in my skin right now, and that's what's important.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Of course.
It's another vulnerable position to be in. But
yeah. Always.
Appreciate it.
Of course.
All right. See you in 3 months.
Yes, seriously.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. I'm just so honored by all of these patients who are sharing their stories with me and with you. Thank you so much, Jane, for coming on, and I'll see you next time.